Hey you guys, it's Kristen and welcome back to the Gold Project. Today I have a personal video for y'all. I think these are important for me to do every once in a while just because if you are spending time on this channel, you need to get to know me a little bit. And I have gone into my postpartum depression, the busy mom life that I lead, but I've never talked about my childhood or how I got to where I am today. It has definitely been a journey, and I haven't really been ready to talk about it until now. And that came from me reading the book, Girl, Wash Your Face. After many people were talking about this book on social media, I finally said, you know what, let me go ahead and read this. I am not usually one for books like this that talks about real life and somebody gives their story. But I was compelled to read this, and immediately when I started reading chapter 1, I'm like, I need to do a video talking about this. Because a lot of the things that she was talking about, I could relate to myself. So I actually took some notes and I typed them all up on the computer, and guess what? I didn't print them out. So I'm just going to read through here. I'm trying to get my camera focused to where it's good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of read through this book, and we're going to talk about, I'm not going to talk about every single thing in here because I just want to talk about what pertains to me. This is my first time that I'm doing a book and I'm relating it to my life. So I'm going to do my best to kind of go between the two. So this book is set up based on lies. So every chapter is called The Lie, and then she says what the lie is. Then she tells her story why that is a lie. And it goes through 20 different chapters. I'm not going to talk about 20 different things. So we're just going to talk about the ones that pertain to me. So we're going to talk about chapter 1 first. And the lie that she talks about in chapter 1 is something else will make me happy. Okay, she says in this chapter, life is not supposed to overwhelm you at all times. Life isn't meant to be survived. It is meant to be lived. Seasons or instances will inevitably feel out of your control, but the moments when you feel like you're drowning are supposed to be brief. So if you have moments like last year when my stepdad died, it was a very intense time period, but it did pass. We're still kind of dealing with it, but I shouldn't live in that type of moment every single day of my life. Then she goes in to talk about how people have commented on her photos. And when they comment on her photos, it says, your life looks so perfect. And she says, what I think they mean to say is your life seems happy. You look content. You're always optimistic and grateful. You're always laughing. And she goes in to say that she wants to explain. I didn't have an easy start. Actually, if I'm going to be honest, the word I would use to describe my childhood would be traumatic. So she goes into her life. I'm not going to really talk about it, but how her life was traumatic with her parents and how things weren't always as perfect as somebody might think that her life has been. And then she talks about her brother and how he committed suicide. So she talks about how her upbringing was very traumatic. And I will tell you that, now let's talk about me. You might think, I try to keep it real with you guys, but you might think that a lot of people think that I was born with the silver spoon. That when I was in school, I got called a lot snobby and snotty, and that I thought I was better than everybody. And really, I was just a very shy child. My husband has even told me in high school that he thought I was stuck up. And I know that I came across that way. But I was very shy. And I will tell you what I think it stems from. My mom would tell me when I was little that I was very like an outgoing child, and this is prior to being like 4, that I was very outgoing and I would speak to people and I smiled and I was, bubbly. But I don't remember that time because my parents got divorced when I was 4. And you don't think that when you're young, you don't know that situations you go through are really affecting you until your personality is formed. And then if you choose to look back on those times, you can see what formed your personality and why you are who you are. So those times that I don't even remember are who formed me. They created that shy girl that came across as being snobby or snotty or whatever you want to call. But it was me protecting me. And I know that now because divorce, and anybody, my parents went through an ugly divorce. It was not easy. I had a younger sister. I still have a younger sister. She's 4 years younger than me. So my sister was not even a year old when my parents separated. And I've always felt like I needed to be her second mom because of what we went through. I'm the big sister and I need to protect her. It was very hard. It was, I can remember going to, you can remember little glimpses of your childhood, or I can remember going to court, having to discuss my parents and how I felt around each one of them. And all I can remember about the courtroom, I can remember sitting down in this big chair and talking to somebody about it. And I can remember the shoes. I can remember sitting in the hallway on a chair and a bench, and my dad and my grandparents walking in, and all I saw was their shoes. And that's all I really remember. But it was hard. Anybody that comes through a divorce, it's hard. It was hard for me. It made me not trust people. And I have a hard time trusting. Especially when it comes to men. My husband has been the only person to break through that wall. And I will get more into that in a minute. But about my dad and my trust issues with men and all that in a minute, because that's in a further chapter. But I will tell you that I think that is the single most, the thing that shaped me the most was coming from a divorce. And I will say that my parents, they weren't supposed to, divorce happens. Not two people aren't always meant to be together. So they weren't happy. So I'm glad that they got divorced. But it does take a toll on your kids sometimes. And I think it did take a toll on us. Not because I can remember, but because I look at the personality that I have and the things that, the way that I handle things. And I think it did shape who I am. So it has taken a lot for me to get to a happy place. Coming from something like that. Now, I will get into further detail in a minute on that, but I wanted to kind of start the conversation with I am a child from a divorce. So we're going to move to the next chapter. And I think it's chapter 2. So chapter 2 is I'll start tomorrow. And you guys, this is the biggest thing that I learned in this chapter. She says, in this chapter, she talks about the lie is I'll start tomorrow. And it's something I never thought about in here, but she talks about how you should never break a promise to yourself. If you've made a promise to yourself, you don't break that promise. So she says if you constantly make and break promises to yourself, you're not making promises at all, you're talking. And that is true. If you tell yourself, I'm going to do this, I'm going to work out tomorrow, and then you get up the next day and you had no intention of working out tomorrow, you start believing that. You tell yourself things and you're like, I'm going to tell myself this, but I know I'm not going to do it. So the promises you make to yourself really aren't promises because you know in your head that you're not going to follow through. So she says when you really want something, you find a way. And to never, words are powerful, but actions shape our lives. So if you make a promise to yourself, don't break it. She said if you break a promise to anybody, it does not need to be to yourself. So So you guys, what I want to say about that is that's why I make daily to-do lists. I am a list maker. I constantly make lists. Every single day, I have a list of things that I have to get done. I consider that a promise to myself. I am promising myself that I will get these things done. And I feel like if I write it down, I need to accomplish it. So if you're one of those people that makes promises to yourself and you have a hard trouble with the follow through, maybe write it down if you don't. I find it very easy to complete tasks because of my whole mindset. If I write something down, I want to mark it off. I want to mark it off and make sure that I've accomplished it, because it gives me this sense of accomplishment when I'm able to mark something off of a to-do list. So you guys, that is true. Make sure that you are keeping promises that you make yourself. So I realized when I read that chapter that I do that. I do a really good job of that because I'm always making my lists. I'm always marking things off my list. I always, when I make a promise to myself, I write it down and I mark it off. So if you're having problems with making and keeping promises to yourself, write it down. It's helped me a lot. So I know that does not relate to chapter 1, but that was her chapter 2. So I'm going through the book like that. Chapter 3 is the lie is I'm not good enough. You guys, this is probably the most compelling chapter that I'm going to spend the most time talking to you today. The one big focal point that she talks about in this chapter is she is a recovering workaholic. And she defines workaholic, she's looked the definition up in the dictionary, as a person who feels compelled to work excessively. I would consider myself, after looking at this, a workaholic. You guys, I rarely come home and sit. I am always picking up, cooking, doing laundry, working on YouTube videos, editing a video. I feel like I have to work nonstop. When I'm home, I feel guilty if I sit for 5 minutes because I'm like, oh, I could be doing those dishes. So I would say I'm a recovering workaholic too. I guess I just recognize that I am a workaholic and I need to work on that. So I guess the first step is admitting it. Then she goes in to talk about why she thinks she's a workaholic. I've always known that I have a hard time slowing down, but I've never sat and I've really thought about it until I read her chapter on this. She talks about, I'm the baby of 4 children, and by the time my parents got around to my childhood, their marriage was deeply in trouble. Even though I was the youngest, I was very self-sufficient. And I think the combo of these two things meant that I was largely ignored until I did something good. I don't think I was ignored like she was. I'm the oldest of 2, me and my sister. And my parents did have a troubled marriage, but I don't remember any of the troubled marriage because they got divorced when I was 4. So I don't remember any of that. But she said that when I succeeded, I got praise and attention. But the moment the audience stopped clapping, it all went back to the way it was before. What this taught me is the belief that in order to be loved, I felt needed to produce something. So, fast forward to her 30s. So I think she's like a year or 2 younger than me. I'm constantly moving and going and rushing through life. The second I achieve one goal, the second it's accomplished, I immediately think, okay, what's next? I struggle to celebrate or enjoy any victory, no matter how big, because I'm always mindful of something bigger I could be doing instead. At work, I'm constantly at it. When I get home, I do dishes and I organize cabinets and I make to-do lists, and that will be impossible to accomplish in this lifetime, and make a list of to-dos that will be impossible to accomplish in this lifetime or the next. You guys, that rings so true to me. So very true to me. And then she goes on the next page to say a physical response to an emotional problem. Stop and think about that. So the workaholic being nonstop, she says, even when I'm at home, I'm constantly doing something. If I'm not taking care of the kids, I'm organizing the house, cleaning out my closet, or giving myself a DIY facial. That is me nonstop to a T all the time. I'm doing something. So she says it is a physical response to an emotional problem. So when she said that, I stopped and I thought, okay, yes, I am a workaholic. What caused me to be on the go all the time? So this rang true to me. Why am I on the go all the time? Why do I feel like I've got to be perfect? Why do I feel like I've got to accomplish everything? And remember I talked about divorce earlier? We're going to go back to that, and I'm going to talk about it again. This is something I've never talked about. I think I may have vaguely talked about something when I was doing my word of the year back in 2016, I thought. And I got a little bit emotional over it. So I'm going to talk about it today because I think it's important. Because the older I get, I'm able to go back and I'm able to evaluate how I am and who I am and what made me who I am today. And I will tell you that, and this is not to attack anybody, and this is not to make anybody feel negative about the situation I'm talking about, but we're going to talk about that divorce that I talked about and how it really formed the person I am today. I told you that I have trust issues with men. This is really a hard subject for me to talk about. I don't really talk about it that much, but I have not had the best relationship with my dad. I have not. I always felt like growing up, he wasn't around. He didn't come to, he didn't come to things. He didn't come to plays. He didn't, he lived in one state. My mom lived in another. He didn't make tons of phone calls to us. He worked all the time. He saw us every other weekend, but every other weekend when he got us, a lot of times my stepmom would be in charge of us because he worked on the weekends. And I understand that people have to work and all that, but I felt like we never had that connection that I feel like a father and daughter need. Like I look at Kate and Nathan, my husband, and it makes me happy. I really didn't think I was going to cry. I didn't plan on crying. It makes me really happy to see because I didn't have that growing up. And I think men are so important. A dad is so important in a daughter's life. Nathan goes to cheer competitions. He goes to plays and awards assemblies. He's there all the time. If she has any problems with cheer or anything, he's there to pick up the pieces for her. And I think that is so important. So every time I see them interacting, my heart smiles. Because she's got what I feel like I never had. There's so many times, like I didn't know how boys were supposed to treat girls growing up. I didn't know. I had a sister, so I didn't have a brother. I was not raised around boys. So, you guys, I was shy. I didn't want boys to talk to me because I didn't know how I was supposed to react to them. Because I didn't have that male figure to show me how, like, a husband and wife were supposed to interact or show love or, the respect that a man was supposed to show a woman. I didn't know any of that. So I was terrified of men always. Always. So I did come across, I didn't have a lot of dates in high school. I didn't have a lot of boyfriends. I didn't have all of that because I was scared of it. I didn't want to be one-on-one with guys because I didn't know. I didn't know what I was supposed to do or how I was supposed to react, and I didn't want them to touch me. Like, don't touch me. I don't feel comfortable with that. And the relationship that you have with your father, it is the base for every relationship that you have with a man growing up, in my personal opinion. I didn't have that groundwork set. That groundwork has not been formed. And you guys, it's for anybody out there, if it's possible, your daughters need their dad. They need their dad if that's possible. Now, that's always possible. Man, it just helps to have that dad-daughter connection if it is possible. So I will tell you that Nathan and I's relationship was a very rocky start. It's by the grace of God that we've made it this far because I was not nice to him. By the time Nathan and I started dating when I was 16, and by the time we started dating, that wall was built up. No man is coming over that wall. I'll date you, but I don't have high expectations. I was not nice to him. I think I broke his spirit a lot in the beginning. I don't know why he stayed with me. I really don't. Because I was not nice to him. But God, you guys, it's God is why he stayed with me. He doesn't even know why he stayed with me. I mean, we talk about it now, and we've talked about it through the years. It took many years for him to chisel down my wall, for me to trust him and to know that he had my best interest at heart. And it's all because of that rocky foundation that was formed. And he's about the only man that I really trust because of that relationship that was that non-relationship that I had with my dad. And he might watch this. I mean, I don't know if he will, but it's not meant to be a negative towards him if he does watch this video. But that's how it is. I don't ever remember being first. I was never the top on his priority list. Never. I never got the, I'm so proud of the grades you've had. And you guys, I busted my tail end because I was going to prove to him that I was worthy of love and that I was worthy. I got straight A's. I worked. I was a good kid. I stayed out of trouble to prove to him that I was a good kid. I was a good daughter. I can do good grades. I make great decisions. Because I felt like if I did that and if I busted my tail end, then it would show him that I was worthy of love that I did not feel that I was getting. Every time I met a goal, every A I got, every test that I passed, every time that, the perfectionist tendency. I was a perfectionist because of it. I think that's where I got some anxiety as well, is because I was like, I've got to be perfect. If I'm perfect, he's going to love me more. I've got to be perfect. I've got to be perfect. And every goal I attained for myself, I pushed myself even higher to prove to him that I could do something. I was going to be better. And I don't know why I was doing this, because I really don't think he was keeping up with all of this stuff that I was doing. But it was an internal, like it said, a physical response to an emotional problem. I was emotionally torn up. So I was physically trying to overcome the emotion. I was not dealing with the emotional drainage that I had. So I was physically, if I push, if I don't sit, if I continuously work, if I continuously do this, I won't have to think about that emotional empty void in my heart. I was class president. I was on honor roll. I was a cheerleader. I was in the band. I was on the homecoming court. I was involved. You guys, I was pushing all the time, trying to fill that emotional void that I did not have filled. Because I thought if I kept pushing, then the love would come. He would say, oh, I really want to love you because you are the perfect daughter. So, in a way, I guess I am who I am today because of the way he was. So, I like who I am, but you can't fully be happy until you deal with the emotional issue. So I have come a long way from that point. I was an emotional mess. And I thank God for my mom. And now that I am a mom, I look back on everything she did for me. And she wasn't perfect. No parent is perfect. But you guys, she was there. She was at every play. She was at every awards assembly. She was at every game I cheered at. Even on those little JV games where I had to ride a bus to a basketball game on a Thursday night, she drove and she was there. She held my hair while I vomited in the toilet. She was up with me when I was sick. She fixed my lunches in the morning. She took me to school. If I forgot my flute, she would go home and she would pick the flute up before she would drop me off, go pick the flute up, bring it back to school. She was always there. Always there. And she worked her tail end off. But she made sure to be there when I needed her. And I didn't fully appreciate her until I became a mom myself. And I had to fix those lunches. And I had to hold my kid's hair while they vomited. And I had to take, my kid to the ER when he banged his head against his door. And, went off little amounts of sleep. It's all those little things that you take for granted when you're growing up that are the big things. So I'm very thankful for the things that my mom gave me and for her always being there, because she had to step up to the plate and be the mom and the dad, and that is not an easy task. Being a mom is not an easy task, but when you have a parent that has to be the mom and the dad, it's not an easy task. And here's the thing. And I'm sorry if I offend anybody in this video. I'm telling my story. My story is not equal to yours. But giving a child support check, is not equal to being a parent. It's not. The check does not equal emotion. A check does not equal love. It just does not. So just because you're writing a check does not mean that you are a dad or you're a mom, or it takes a lot of heart and it takes a lot of emotion to get the title of mom or dad. And I'm so happy that my husband is that figure for my daughter, what she needs. Because there's a lot of times that she needs something that I cannot give her. Nathan is the only one that can give that to her. He gives her the confidence, and he gives her, and it can't be explained in words. He gives her something that a daughter needs. And it just makes my heart happy to see that. And you guys, that's where I was going with this video. I never knew how to really address it in a video until I read this book. And I decided that this was the perfect time to talk about it. So I've laid that little secret that I've kept on the table. Now y'all know. You know why I am the way I am, why I push so hard, why I'm a perfectionist, why I can pop out 3 videos a week while working full time, by being a cheer mom, by being a mom that son does taekwondo, by being a coach's wife. I'm a workaholic. Now comes the part of how do I recover? And that's something that I'm going to stop right there. I've got to learn how to let myself rest and just relax. I have not got there yet, but hopefully I will one day, because I do love this channel, and I would spend every ounce of my day on this channel if I could. But I do have to teach myself to slow down, that it's okay to be happy and slow down. I'm happy, you guys. Don't mistake that. I want to give you, I am at a happy place finally in my life. I am so very happy. And I have this channel to thank for it, because it's allowed me to be able to explore the things that have caused me such pain and to be able to move past them. So I'm at a happy place in my life. Now I just have to learn how to not be a workaholic all the time. So you guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've enjoyed a little bit of a background story of who I am. I would love it if you would give it a thumbs up. Thumbs up shows YouTube that you're engaged and you like my content, and then we'll start suggesting and recommending my videos to more people so our community will grow. And if you're not a member here, we would love to have you as part of our community by clicking that little red subscribe button below. Also hit the bell notification so YouTube will let you know when I post videos. So you guys, I hope you have a fantastic week, and I hope I've not bored you, and I hope that you have found this helpful and got a little bit more of getting to know me. So you guys, I hope you have a fantastic week, and until next time, bye you guys.